What did the Jews at the time believe about a physical resurrection?
The belief in resurrection from the dead is a belief that's attested about 3 times in the Old Testament, in Ezekiel 37, in Isaiah 26, and in Daniel 12, I believe. And during the intertestamental period, this belief in resurrection from the dead flowered and became a widespread belief in Judaism. During Jesus' own day, the doctrine of the resurrection from the dead was held by the party of the Pharisees, although it was rejected by the party of the Sadducees. And Jesus sided with the Pharisees on this score in opposition to the Sadducees. He believed in the resurrection and argued that the Pharisees were correct in this matter. The Jewish belief in resurrection from the dead was always belief in a physical resurrection, that it was the material body that was raised. In fact, sometimes these could be grossly materialistic in nature, in terms of actually assembling the original particles of the body to be raised again from the dead. On other occasions, such as, for example, in the pseudepigraphical book of Baruch, the resurrection involves the physical resurrection of the body in the tomb, but then the body is transformed into a glorified body, taking on a sort of heavenly glory, so that not all of the conceptions of resurrection were grossly materialistic. Sometimes they would have this notion of a transformation that it would occur at the resurrection to make the body fit for eternal habitation. So that on the typical Jewish view of the resurrection, when the body dies, the flesh decomposes, the bones are then preserved for the day of the resurrection. It was primarily the bones that were the object of the resurrection. And so the Jews were very careful to preserve the bones of the dead in ossuaries or jars until the day of the final resurrection. Meanwhile, the soul of the departed person would go to be with God and would in some way be kept by God in a secure way until the final resurrection at the end of history. And then at the end of the world, at the end of the human age, the body, or the bones more precisely, would be raised to new life, clothed with flesh, resurrection body would appear, and the soul would be infused into the resurrection body again, and the person would be then fit for eternal habitations. And it's interesting to notice that the Christian view of the resurrection, particularly as taught by Paul, is almost 100% similar to this Jewish concept of the resurrection, involving the departure of the soul to God, the body going back to the ground, being laid in the earth, and then the body in the grave being raised at the last day upon the return of Christ, and being reunited with the soul, and then being transformed into, or rising transformed from the dead to go into the new heavens and the new earth. The principal difference between Paul's conception and the Jewish conception is Christ. That when a person dies, a Christian dies, Paul felt that he goes to be in a blissful, conscious fellowship with Christ. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And he says it's better to depart from this body and to be with the Lord in this state of blissful communion. And then the souls, the departed souls of the righteous dead who are with Jesus, will accompany Christ at the time of his second coming, when those who are living upon the earth at that time will then be immediately transformed into the resurrected state. But the addition of this Christological element to the doctrine of the resurrection doesn't change the essential notion of the resurrection for Paul as being a physical resurrection of the remains of the dead person in the tomb, and that person's body being reunited with his departed spirit or soul.